Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Global Health Impact Network podcast. I'm your host, Martin Eels. Today we have another amazing speaker with us. I would like to introduce Dr. Alan Franklin, CEO of ForwardVue Pharma. Alan, it's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. So why don't we just kick off today's episode? Just do a quick introduction about yourself and a quick introduction about ForwardVue Pharma.
I'm Alan Franklin. I'm a practicing retina surgeon, have a combined MD PhD degree. Been doing retina surgery for a little over 20 years. And the two of the main diseases that we treat are macular degeneration and diabetic retinopathy. Currently, I'm doing about 6,000 intravitreal injections into the eye for these conditions each year. So we've had the vascular blocking technology to address these diseases since 2005. And certainly they were transformational in 2005. But since 2005, our progress has been relatively slow going. And by virtue of my clinical practice, I think I have some insight into, the pros and cons, positives and negatives of the current treatment. And although for the first time in 2005, we were able to improve some people's vision, the cost of that is relatively high. Most individuals need 6 or 8 shots per eye per year. For wet macular degeneration, the 6 or 8 shots per eye per year achieves a significant vision gain in only 1 out of 3 people. And in diabetes, about 1 out of 3 people are recalcitrant to the treatment. The treatment since 2005, and I would argue even the emerging technologies, essentially exclusively block one factor, VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. So towards this end, ForwardVue Pharma has been working on a small molecule called carboxyamidotriazole, the durable synthetic molecule. And I think there are 3 advantages to the ForwardVue technology compared to what we have now. The first of which is we're an early stage company. We're preclinical, and most preclinical companies have to show both effectiveness and non-toxicity. CAI, or carboxyamidotriazole, has been injected has been actually administered orally in 900 patients in cancer trials, and it has a very good systemic safety profile. It did not meet phase 3 endpoints. These were trials in the 90s where they were using it as a monotherapy for advanced cancer, and that was a hard endpoint to meet. Plus, the molecule is very highly plasma protein bound, and the absorption into the gut through the gut was variable. So we felt like doing a local ocular formulation would get around the problem of plasma protein binding, because the eye is a low protein environment and there's no bioavailability issue. Further safety studies in the eye of several different formulations have shown that that CAI is well tolerated in the eye in 2 or 3 different species for up to 7 or 8 months. So we've got both the systemic human safety data as well as local ocular data in several species for months. The second point that we think is that we're really encouraged about the molecule is it's not a canonical VEGF blocker. It blocks an ORAI1 channel which basically inhibits calcium entry into the cell. It does co-localize with a receptor for VEGF receptor 2, so we do hit parts of the VEGF pathway, but we also block FGF, PDGF, and modulate Tie2 as well as integrin activity. So it's a pretty broad and robust anti-angiogenic hit, and our data in preclinical models has been quite encouraging. We have 90% inhibition in a model that simulates diabetic retinopathy as opposed to 50% in the VEGF blockers in that model, and we have about 70% in a model that simulates wet AMD, macular degeneration, which is about at the top end of efficacy for that model also. Finally, we have some data that we're encouraged that CAI may have a role in preventing progressive degeneration in macular degeneration, so it may be a treatment for dry AMD. And finally, the third thing we really like about the company, or I really like, is we've got an excellent management team. Bob Katz is our CEO. He has 20 years of C-level experience, 4 out of 5 successful exits. His last company he took from an initial preclinical company with a single founder MD like myself, worked with the company for 8 years, got it into phase 3 trials, which are meeting endpoint right now, and a very successful exit. And then we have Bob Dempsey's team at Shire, which did Xiidra, which wound up being one of the top 10 deals of all biotech in 2019. So the management team is great also. Where our preclinical budget is around $3 million. Our formulations work, we're looking at complexing CAI to PLGA. If we use it in solution, we'll inject it into a space called the suprachoroidal space. This will, again, it's another risk mitigation thing because other companies are having problems with PLGA solutions injected into the eye. So we're going to inject it into this space underneath the choroid that should avoid all of those pitfalls. And we're also looking at a formulation, a solid PLGA formulation rod that's injected into the eye like a standard injection. And those have been well tolerated in both preclinical models, and there are multiple approved drugs that are based on that platform. So our initial ask for a couple $100,000 will allow us to get significant proof of concept for that formulation. Once we have that proof of concept, we're essentially doing confirmatory experiments for our pre-IND, our formal pre-IND toxicity, because we've already looked at several different candidate formulation for months in animals. So we think it's a pretty short and direct path once we have that formulation worked out to get to clinic, and then we'll do a phase 1B clinical trial and exit, and we should have a 10 to 15-fold return on investment with that exit, and that would hopefully be in 3.5 to 4 years.
Nice. So, what are some of the largest unmet needs in eye disease currently?
There are about 11 million people in the U.S. that have both diabetic eye disease, and somewhere around that number for macular degeneration, or a little higher. A little more than 10% of people require injections for both conditions. So in this country, it's somewhere around a 1 in 150 chance throughout the population that people will need injections. So these are relatively common diseases, and right now they're treated with frequent injections, and most people don't get better despite the frequent injections. So we need to find injectables that A, will last longer, and B, will be more effective and get more people seeing.
Okay, so what's the current state of research and development to address these needs?
So the great question. We have 3 three approved molecules to treat these diseases. They're all VEGF blockers. One is Lucentis or bevacizumab. The other is Eylea or aflibercept. Beovu was recently approved. This is a Novartis compound, but there's somewhere around a 1 in 600 to 1 in 800 incidence of blindness from occlusive vasculitis that was permanent. So that, and that's thought to be from just really high affinity VEGF blockade. That one is not getting a whole lot of market use. There's Avastin or Avastin actually is bevacizumab. Lucentis is ranibizumab. I'm sorry. So there's ranibizumab. Bevacizumab is Avastin that's used off-label. Faricimab is met clinical trial endpoints, which is a combined VEGF Ang2 blocker. It mostly functions through VEGF blockade. It's probably going to extend the treatment durability by a couple of weeks. There's Kodiak, which is a large antibody conglomerate. And so instead of going small, they're going big. They need 3 monthly loading doses and then a dose or two per year. So that takes the treatment burden from 6 to 8 down to 4 to 5. So it's a step in the right direction. Graybug technology is TKI or VEGF receptor blocker used with PLGA. The high doses on clinical hold, they've had issues with migration of their particles into the anterior chamber. The low dose is about a little over 4-month durability at this point. So again, a step in the right direction, but not transformative. Genetic therapy, there have been a year or so ago, genetic therapy was touted as the next best thing, but both in retinal disease and other conditions, there have been a lot of really kind of noteworthy toxicities. So genetic treatment is probably not going to be ready for prime time for a few years yet. So that's kind of the nature of the space right now. Oh, and there's the Lucentis port delivery system, which you implant a port surgically. It's about a 10 or 15 minute operation, and then you can refill it in the office every 9 months or so. So that will reduce the treatment burden, but it's a surgery. So that's kind of where we are, making slow progress, but nothing's transformative at this point or transformative that's on the horizon.
Well, it seems like you're doing some amazing things. Is there anything else you'd like to add for anyone who's listening?
I think you asked great questions. I think that about covers it. So again, I'd like to thank you for having me.
No, it's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for everyone who listens to the GHIM podcast. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much. Stay safe.
Okay, thanks. You too.